Welcome to this episode of Ask the Guitar Coach, the only podcast where you get answers to all your guitar-related questions. If you're interested in developing your guitar skills and reaching your music goals, please send me an email at the email address ioannis@ioannis.org. That is IOANNIS at IOANNIS.org, so that I can let you know about all the different packages of elite guitar coaching and how you can get private coaching by me. Without further ado, let's go to our question for the day. What guitar playing speeds can be considered mastery? Okay, here's a really good but very specific question. So I don't know how many people are going to find this really relevant to them, but I think it's going to give a good overview of what speeds and what kind of playing can be expected from a professional level player, okay? Now, before we get started and I start giving and throwing numbers at you, I need to explain clearly that this is both style specific and technique specific. So not all techniques have the same, let's say, higher level of speed, and not all techniques are expected to reach this kind of speed. However, we as musicians, we try to develop all our technical playing to a similar level and then have access to specific sound qualities that sometimes can be only achieved with extreme speed, even though that's not the point of playing guitar, but it is one sound quality that we need to have in our arsenal. So having said that, let's get started with more specific information. The fast speed on electric guitar begins at 16th notes at 180 BPM. So this should be your first goal, to go over 180. Below 180, it can be very, very decent playing, but it's not considered virtuosic in any way. So if you find that you want to develop your technical playing to a high level and you want to have access to this kind of sound, the very fast playing sound, you need to be at a minimum of 180 BPM, beats per minute that is, and playing 16th notes for that speed. So to put this in a different setting, 180 BPM times 4, since you're playing 16th notes, that's 720 notes per minute. So if we're talking about 720 notes per minute, you divide this by 60, which is the 60 seconds in a minute, you end up with 12 notes per second. So this would be the base of the really fast speed. Now, I'm not going to say fast speed, because depending on how you're playing and what you're playing, even 140 BPM can sound fast. But for really fast speed, like the minimum level of speed to be considered, let's say, for virtuosity, the beginning of virtuosity would be 180 BPMs, so 12 notes per second. Let's go now to the meat and potatoes of virtuosity, which is the next 40 BPMs, would be from 180 to 220. Again, we're talking about beats per minute, all right, 180 to 220 beats per minute, and I'm always talking about 16th notes. So again, if you make the multiplication and you multiply those numbers by 4, since we're talking about 16th notes, you have anywhere from 720 to 880 notes per minute. So do you have to reach the speeds? No, but that's the question. What is the range of speeds that can be considered virtuosic playing? So let me start by making some disclaimers, let's say. Specific techniques can reach specific speeds. Not every technique by itself can reach a highest speed. So, for example, Judging from my experience and from the vast majority of my technically inclined students, single techniques like alternate picking or sweeping can reach, for a decent player, maybe around 200 BPMs. So players that have been playing for a long time and have paid their dues in practicing can get up to 200, not without too much trouble, but it can happen after several years of playing. Now, when we go to more specialist techniques, for example, tapping, and small combinations of tapping with legato, let's say, then it can reach significantly higher. Then we can go up to 220 or 230 BPMs, again, 16th notes. So 220, as I said, is like 880 beats per minute. Now, I'm not trying to encourage anybody to try to do that unless they really, really want to. There's definitely no global rule that says you have to be that or to reach this speed. However, I have to repeat that because this is one of the things that can get easily misunderstood. That was the question, Mike. The question we are answering today is what are the speeds that are considered world class? Okay, so going on. So specialist techniques like specific sweeping phrases or small combinations of tapping and legato shapes can reach up to 230. So is this the limit for a normal player, for a normal, let's say, human player? Well, kind of. Let's see one more idea. There are specific combination techniques that it's possible because of optimizing the mechanics, and I know this is going to totally fly above the head of the vast majority of the people listening, but just bear with me for a minute. So specific combination techniques can reach higher speeds because we optimize them to minimize string changes and to minimize the things that make fast playing on the guitar difficult. Usually, this will be single string patterns, but played with a combination of both hands, and with wider stretches so that you can reach higher intervals. So, to hopefully simplify, a combination of wide stretches from the left hand and tapping on the right hand can reach much higher speeds, sometimes from 250 and above. Now, 250 is a really, really, really fast speed. That means you're going to 1000 notes per minute, which is a lot more than the 720 we were talking about as the beginning of the fast speed. But this, for the vast majority of players, meaning people who are not genetic freaks at guitar playing, at technical guitar playing, for the vast majority of players, this is the kind of speed that they could reach at the top of their game as the highest level. Once again, I know it's becoming tiring, and it's tiring even for me to be giving all these disclaimers, but it's important to understand that this is not something that is expected from you if you want to play guitar. It's something that this is the highest limit of what a person could achieve if he decides to dedicate his life to this endeavor. Now, very briefly, why would someone need to reach this speed? Well, there are two reasons to reach this speed. The most usual one is ego. As people, when we belong in a group, I don't mean a music band, the group, the guitar players, we want to find ways to differentiate ourselves from other people. And to differentiate means to seem that we're better. And one way to do that is to be able to say, oh, I'm faster than the next guy. The same thing happens in all different kinds of like art efforts. Well, not even art. I mean, you would do the same thing if you were doing martial arts, like how high one can kick, or if you're working out with weights, how much a person can bench, or how much he can lift in different lifts. You know, competition is a normal part of life. However, once you go past the ego, the only other reason one would need to have extreme speed in his disposal, and I'm talking about extreme speed, is just to have access of that thing as a sound quality to use in his compositions. And this is perfectly acceptable. Every now and then I will do it in specific compositions and specific parts when you want to like really amp up the tension. And one of the very, very good ways to really create a lot of tension is by using extreme speed. Once again, in my opinion, this should be used sparingly. This is not something to use all the time, otherwise it totally loses its impact and its interest. But these are the two main reasons. So, the best way to reach extreme speeds for the vast majority of people is to use a combination of different techniques, mostly played in one string. Why is that? Because the difficult thing about guitar playing is changing strings when you're doing string changes, and your fingers have to move in multiple directions at the same time, both the left hand and the right hand. So if you manage to keep it in one string, then it can get really fast. And if you manage to combine the left hand and the right hand in the combination of playing with the left hand, so it has to be legato, and the right hand, which means tapping, then you can get some really, really high speeds up to 250 BPMs, which means 1000 notes per minute. So there you have it. I'm sorry about this like really lengthy, almost quasi-scientific analysis of fast playing on the guitar. I hope it didn't put everybody to sleep, but since I decided to answer the question, it was, my duty to do it to the best of my ability. So I hope this was helpful for some of you, hopefully for many of you, and I will see you on the next episode of Ask the Guitar Coach. Until then, keep sending me your questions. Bye bye.